Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiyet.
Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayan, unto Non-Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author.
And Guru Maharaj used to add, and on to the greatest revolutionary preacher, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nasta prayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati tam shloke bhakti bhavati.
By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact.
Right. So we've looked at the first verse, second verse, and actually the first verse, there's 108 commentaries by different acharyas on just this one verse. 108 different acharyas have written commentaries on the first verse. It's such a significant verse. And the first three verses, oh, what happened? Didn't I do it? Oh, maybe I didn't do it. Oh, I didn't save it. Oh, Krishna. Okay, I've got it here anyway. I've got it on the other side. So the third verse we can just recite. Unfortunately, I haven't put it up, but I have got it here. So let's do it. Nigama kalpataro galitam phalam sukhamukha amritadrava samyutam pibate bhagavatam rasam valayam muhu rasika bhuvi bhavaka.
O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desired tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukdev Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls.
So we'll talk more about that. But these three verses combined are very significant because they are attached to the principles of Sambandha, Abhidheya, and Prayojana. So this one is Sambandha, establishing our relationship with the Lord. And then number two is one is establishing, Abhidheya is doing seva, practical seva, and Prayojana, the last one, the third verse which we just read out, is like the attaining the ultimate goal. So these three principles are quite important in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. Okay. So before we start, I wanted to seek devotees' blessings and good wishes so that we can look at a little bit about the history of the Bhagavatam and also the qualifications of the speaker and the hearer, the listener. So, because we want to try to get in the right mood for the Bhagavatam, and it's quite important to just do this background work before we actually try to enter the nectar of the Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so there you go. Is that there? Yeah, okay, good. So in terms of the history of the Bhagavatam, so Lord Krishna came to this world just over 5,000 years ago. Whilst he was in this world, Kali could not enter. When the sun is shining, there's no question of darkness. So when he left the planet, it was the time for Kali to enter, Kali Yuga to begin. That's the next stage. Dwapara Yuga finishes, Kali Yuga starts. But it didn't start straight away because the sages gathered in Naimisharanya. And I believe it was 88,000 sages who did 1,000-year yajna or something like that. So they halted the advent of Kali. But anyway, it was Kali's time. It was Kali's time. So there's in the Bhagavatam, we'll see later on how there is Kali actually attacks Dharma, and the bull has got 3 legs missing or broken, and only leg left was truthfulness. And when Parikshit, the grandson of Arjun, saw this, he became very angry, and he asked Gaumata, because Dharma had taken the form of the bull. He asked the bull, "Who did this to you?" And it became apparent that it's Kali. So he was ready to kill. But then Kali took shelter of Parikshit Maharaj. He said, "You can't kill me. I'm your resident. I'm your one of your citizens. You have to give me protection." So Parikshit, to cut a long story short, said, "Yes, you can reside in various places. You can reside in houses of liquor, slaughterhouses, and unfavorable or not so nice people reside in the kingdom." But Kali wasn't happy. He said, "No, you need to give me more. I can't just reside here." So he did. He gave him much more. He gave him, wherever gold is, you can reside there, for example. And of course, Parikshit Maharaj was wearing a golden crown. So it's a bit unfortunate that he was wearing a golden crown. So Kali had the opportunity to reside there. So one time they were in the forest, Parikshit Maharaj, and he went, actually just before we go there, this will come across again, what's on the screen, how Srila Vyasadeva had compiled the Mahabharata, the Puranas, Vedanta Sutra, so many literatures, but he felt this deep sense of dissatisfaction. And he was looking inside, not understanding the cause of his dejection. And at that time, Narad Muni came, and Narad Muni guided him that actually, yes, you've written wonderful scriptures, but you haven't glorified the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So this is what you need to do. And that guidance fructified because Vyasadeva wrote, he'd already written the Bhagavatam, but he edited it to include Sri Krishna, pastimes of Sri Krishna. And then this was taught to Vyasadeva, from Vyasadeva it was taught to Sukadeva Goswami. Sukadeva Goswami is the son of Parikshit, for Vyasadeva, sorry, that's right. And there's a pastime about how that happened. So going back again to Parikshit Maharaj. One time he was in the ashram of Samika Rishi, and he was thirsty because he'd just been on a hunting expedition. But the sage was in deep meditation. And he didn't want to, he didn't know even that Parikshit Maharaj had come. But Parikshit Maharaj felt insulted because he hadn't been greeted in the ashram of the sage. So Parikshit Maharaj just left, but before leaving, he picked up a dead snake and he just put it around the neck of the rishi. So it wasn't a huge offense. He was just frustrated. But when the young son of Samika Rishi heard Shringi, he was very immature, but a very powerful Brahmin. When he found out, he became very angry and he cursed the king to die in 7 days. So when Samika Rishi found out about this curse, he straight away went to the palace and he said, "I am so sorry. This is done because of the immaturity of my son. And this can be reversed. You can yourself reverse it, Maharaj. and I can reverse it. But Maharaj said no. Parikshit Maharaj said no. This is a benediction. He immediately handed the kingdom over to his son, and he went to the Ganga, and he waited. Many sages came at that time, and he had a question for them. What does somebody do at the time of death? That was his question. Arjun's question was, I'm living, what do I do now? Parikshit was, I'm going to die, what do I do now? So Bhagavad Gita was spoken for as an example how to live, and Bhagavatam is spoken as an example how to die. Both things are important. So the king was so happy. He saw sages coming around, to him, great sages, and he would ask them the question, and there would be different sages giving different answers. Some would say, karma kand is the best way forward, so you can attain the heavenly planets, you should do yagya. Some would say, just meditate on the light and become one with Lord, like that. Anyway, they all gathered, they all decided to wait until Parikshit Maharaj left his body. At that moment came Sukadeva Goswami, 16-year-old son. He was wandering carefree, completely content. He was an avadut. He was a very spiritually elevated personality. And it was as if he was neglected, or he neglected himself. He was followed by women and children. And when he appeared on the scene, everybody rose, even his elders, his seniors, Vyasdev, his father, and Guru, and Narad Muni, his grand guru. They all were in that assembly, but they all rose to pay their respects to Sukadeva Goswami, which is amazing, absolutely amazing. So it was considered that he would be the most qualified to advise the king as to what to do. So he spoke the entire Srimad Bhagavatam to the king in 7 days. So who is Sukadeva Goswami, and why was he so qualified to speak the Bhagavatam? Especially when there were great personalities already there. So Sukadeva Goswami has explained that he's the son of Vyasdev, as we've mentioned, Parahamsa, Mahabhagavat, devotee's intense love for Radha and Krishna is inconceivable. It's regarded that he's an incarnation of Srimati Radharani's favorite parrot in Golok Vrindavan called Lila Sukha, who sings the sweet glories of Krishna to Srimati Radharani when she's all alone and in feeling great separation from Krishna. And he used to also take messages from Radha to Krishna. So in this world, when Srimati Radharani was going to depart, go back to Golok, she said to Sukha, you need to stay here, you've got some work to do. Sukha didn't like the idea, but Radharani said to her, that wherever the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are narrated, you will not feel separation from me. So he would be searching out sages, he would be searching out the sages speaking the glories of Radha and Krishna. And one time he went to Kailash, where Lord Shiva was reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam to Parvati. And he hid himself. He's a parrot, and he's a green parrot. And you don't see them so much in this country. Maybe in Mauritius you will see a lot of them, but in Bharat you see these green parrots everywhere. Amazing. And there's always two. So he was listening to the katha and Lord Shiva was speaking. He was completely engrossed in the chanting. And Parvati, however, fell asleep as she was listening, as Lord Shiva was speaking. But Sukha wanted to keep hearing, so he kept imitating Parvati's voice. Every now and then he would say, So Lord Shiva continued speaking the Bhagavatam. When it was about to end, Parvati woke up, and Lord Shiva wanted to know, do you like the Bhagavatam? And Parvati said to Lord Shiva, I actually fell asleep. I'm so sorry. Then Lord Shiva realized that something's a little bit amiss here. He started looking around, and he saw this parrot sitting on the tree, and he realized this parrot is the one actually was imitating Parvati. He became very angry because not everybody is qualified to hear this Bhagavatam. So he chased after the parrot, who fled in fear and reached the ashram of Vyasadev in Badrinath. And in order to hide, he actually entered the mouth of the wife of Vyasadev, Vatika. And at that time, Lord Shiva was there, Vyasadev was there, and Vyasadev asked what's going on. Lord Shiva explained, this parrot heard the Bhagavatam. And Vyasadev said, well, if he's heard the Bhagavatam, he's now an eternally liberated soul. You can't harm him anymore. It's not possible to harm him. So Lord Shiva realized, yeah, that's very true. So he left. Sukadeva Goswami remained in the womb of Vatika Mataji for a long time. He wouldn't come out. And the reason he wouldn't come out was he didn't want to be affected by material consciousness. And Vyasadeva would try to assure him, pleading with him, come out. You will be protected, I promise you. But he just wouldn't do it. Eventually, Vyasadeva approached Lord Krishna for help. And Lord Krishna promised Sukadeva, don't worry, I will make sure Maya does not touch you. You are eternally liberated soul from the very moment you come out. So he came out, and immediately he actually left home, didn't he?
He walked out. Vyasa was running after him.
And Vyasa was running after him, that's right.
Saying, Putra, Putra.
I think they walked past some girls, and when Sukadeva Goswami was walking past, they didn't cover themselves. But when Vyasadeva walked past, they covered themselves. They were bathing. And Vyasadeva must have asked them, why did you not cover yourself when my son came, but you covered yourself when I came? And what was the answer? The answer was something like, he is totally renounced, whereas you are in the household of life, something like that.
That's right.
Yeah. So, what are the qualifications of Sukadeva Goswami? In the Skanda Purana, it's described how Sutta Goswami mentions to the sages headed by Shonak at Naimisharanya the qualities of a speaker and the qualities of a listener as well. So the most important quality of a speaker is that he must be Krishna Arti, which means he only has a desire to speak about Krishna. And the most important the only qualification of a listener is that he is also Krishna Arti, only eager to hear about Krishna. So it said when these two conditions are met, then Krishna Katha does not remain a Katha. Rather, it becomes a powerful medium that enables both the listener and the speaker to enter into the divine pastimes of Sri Krishna. So this is quite very, very interesting. And then Sutta Goswami explains 5 further qualities of the speaker of Bhagavatam. So he talks about, the first one is Bhagavan Miti, so his mind, Miti, Mati. should always reside in thoughts of Krishna, nothing else. If his mind is on money, how much money I will get by giving this katha, how many followers I will make, or receiving praise from the katha, then the speaker is not qualified. Such a speaker will only waste the time and delude the minds of the listener to worldly topics under the pretext of telling Krishna katha. So it's speaking Krishna katha, but actually he's talking material katha. Second is anapeksha. This means as a speaker of the Bhagavatam does not desire anything in return after speaking on the topics of Krishna katha. He speaks for the joy of reciting the divine pastimes of the Lord. The joy itself makes him narrate the pastimes with intense fever of devotion. He does not recite the Bhagavatam for any material remuneration or to display his scholarly erudition. So this is quite important. So there should be no expectation of anything coming back in return. And this is the Vedic tradition. Vedic knowledge was given freely. And at the end, the guru would be given guru dakshina according to the capacity of the disciple. And there's examples of this. And Sandipani Muni and Krishna, when Krishna spent 64 days in the Avanti, and at the end, Krishna said, I'd like to give Guru Dakshina. And Sandipani Muni said, there is no need. But Sandipani Muni's wife said, actually, our son died when he was young. Can you bring him back? Krishna immediately complied. It was such a fantastic request. And he brought the dead son back because she knew he could do that. Krishna and Balaram. So that was the dakshina given. And when dakshina is given, the knowledge transfers. Our Guru Maharaj, it's complete. It's complete, yeah. Our Guru Maharaj had the same attitude, mood. He would never ask for Lakshmi. He would never ask for donations. If devotees gave according to their capacity, that was good. That was fine. He would give katha after katha, but it wasn't a question of charging. Nowadays, I think there's a little trend, isn't there? We charge, even within ISKCON, we charge for the courses and the classes. But actually, that's just a business transaction. And no gyan is, or maybe gyan might pass, but no vigyan will manifest out of that, because that's not the Vedic tradition. And generally, the speaker will speak according to his heart, the disciple will listen, and according to how realized the disciple becomes, he will offer the Guru Dakshina. So no, that's good. Actually, that's good. So next one, Sudhida, friendly to all. This is the quality of a true Vaishnava. He considers everyone as his own because he knows everyone has come from the beloved Sri Krishna. Therefore, a Vaishnava considers everyone as his friend. With this feeling of oneness, he happily recites Krishna Katha everywhere he goes. So there's no discrimination. It's given. But of course, the reciter will look at the audience, and according to the capacity of the audience, he will speak. Dineshu sanukampoyam, yeah. Extremely compassionate towards the poor, lowly, and those living in pitiable condition. Vaishnava will naturally be more compassionate because he considers everyone a part of the Vaishnava family. He knows the easiest way to remove miseries from the lives of people is to remind them of their eternal relationship with Krishna. The suffering of living beings can immediately be removed by narrating Krishna Katha. So the speaker of Bhagavatam is always more eager to talk about Krishna amongst these people. And finally, Bahuda Bodham Chatura. The speaker of Bhagavatam should be expert in other Vedic scriptures and schools of philosophy. He should be well versed in Ramayana, Mahabharata, Narada Bhakti, Sutras, and other Vaishnava literatures. And we were very fortunate because Guru Maharaj was exactly this. He was expert in almost every scripture. There was no scripture he didn't know. So if the speaker has these above qualities, he will be respected by the Munis. And whenever he recites Bhagavatam, his katha will be attended by the great Vaishnavas like Sukadev Goswami in subtle bodies. So like we were saying yesterday, Prabhupada, he would sometimes say to his disciples, did you see Narad Muni? He was sitting there. Okay. What are the qualifications of the listener? So these are in 4 categories, and they sort of connected to birds. Chattaka is a type of a bird who waits for a certain moment, and when that moment comes, the sweaty constellation, he drinks the raindrops that fall during that constellation. He's very thirsty for that. If you give him Ganga Jal, he'll reject it. So the devotees of this category are always eager to hear Krishna Katha. They're eager and thirsty to hear only about their beloved Sri Krishna's nectarian pastimes. They would prefer dying remembering Krishna's name rather than hear any mundane topics. So this is that great eagerness. We have to develop this great eagerness to become qualified listeners. Hansa, the swan, is gifted by the ability of separating milk mixed into water. So the devotee can separate the essence from the non-essence in any mixture. So any katha that is given, the devotee can work out the worldly aspects and ignore that and get involved with rigorous intensity into the Krishna katha. So this is very important. Sometimes there are kathas which are very much materially minded, motivated, and but the devotee will always look at the Krishna conscious side of it. Sukha, parrot, has the quality of learning and repeating in a very sweet voice. They learn the katha and then they can repeat the katha without any adulteration. His recitation is filled with sweetness of the joy that he feels by thinking of Krishna. So Sukha is Sukadev Goswami is named after the parrot because that's his eternal constitutional position. So he sung the Bhagavatam in the same way. He received it. In fact, he heard it 4 times. Lord Shiva, we just discussed, from Vyasdev, we just discussed. And then 2 more times. He received it in the pastimes of Ajamil, spoken by Agastya Rishi. And he received it during the pastimes of Chitraketu, when it was spoken by Sri Narad Muni and Maharishi Devala. So that's quite interesting. So he'd heard it 4 times. And the 4th category is the fish, Mena. Fish cannot survive without water. It cannot survive in muddy water. So the devotee is like that. He has to hear Krishna Katha. That's his life energy. If he doesn't hear Krishna Katha, he sinks. He suffocates, just like the fish suffocates in muddy water. It becomes very difficult for devotees to speak of worldly talks with worldly people. He prefers only to associate with the devotee-minded people. And I think if we have friendships with non-devotees which are close, I'm not saying that they're bad necessarily, but we have to be careful because devotees have to have this one-pointed attention, Krishna Katha. If I'm going to hear from a non-devotee, it's going to be non-Krishna Katha. So if we are attached to hearing non-Krishna Katha, then we got to be careful. We got to get this intensity of desire to be always with devotees hearing Krishna Katha. It's very important. That's how the heart becomes purified. Otherwise, we're just going to live in this world forevermore. So in summary, what are these 4 categories? Hankering for Krishna Katha, having the wisdom to take the essence of the Krishna Katha, like the Hansa bird, being very attentive, like the Sukha, and be able to repeat Krishna Katha as it is, without adulteration, and having this love for Krishna Katha, like the fish's love for water. So these are 4 qualities of the listener. We don't have them necessarily, but we should aspire for these and try to get in this right mood. When we hear in this mood, then we'll get the best out of the Bhagavatam. And then there's 4 lower categories who Sutta Goswami explains. There's the Vrika, the wolf. This kind of listener doesn't have much interest in spiritual topics. He comes to the Katha.
Late.
They go late. They come sit right at the front, come right through the crowd, talking unnecessarily, sometimes arguing. They're creating a nuisance in the Katha. Second one is Burunda bird. This kind of bird lives in the Himalayas. It listens to the topics discussed amongst the sages. It goes and preaches these topics to others, but it doesn't practice anything for himself. This kind of listener talks on spiritual topics as if they know everything, but they never indulge in spiritual practice. This was said, it was a very nice compliment given to Haridas Thakur. I think it was by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that you not only preach Krishna Katha, but you live Krishna Katha. So when one does that, then the message is going to be effective. Prabhupada is the perfect example. He lived what he preached. There wasn't a moment in his life where he didn't do that. He used to say to his devotee, I've never forgotten Krishna throughout my life. Rishabha, bull. These types of listeners only care for the prasad. Sorry, I missed out the D there. They do not want to hear anything on spiritual topics, but they come with the family and friends just to eat the prasadam. Food is the only thing that matters to them. This reminds me of me, actually, a few years back. No, luckily we always, prasadam was never an issue. So ulterior motives. We go maybe to seek out some mundane company. We got some friends who go to the temple and we go and socialize with them. That's another example. It's more a social club rather than a temple for that person. And then the unstra, camel. Camel has a habit of chewing leaves with thorns. It relishes the taste of blood while chewing this way. So the listener of this category hears the Krishna Katha, but they only get inspired by the negative characters of the Katha. For example, if they hear Mahabharata Katha, they will get inspired by Shakuni and his love for his sister Gandhari. Yeah. Or they may talk about Krishna's Rasa Leela in a perverted manner and so on. So in that way, excuse me, these are categories we want to avoid. So these are 8 categories. 4 of them we want to get close to, and 4 of them we want to get away from. And even if we have any of these mentalities, then we should become aware of these mentalities and try to clear them out. Okay. So sometimes the question is asked by devotees, why isn't Radha's name mentioned in the Bhagavatam, right? Bhagavatam is such an important scripture. But actually the name of Radha doesn't appear in it at all. anywhere. So it's explained that when Sukadeva Goswami was speaking Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj, the king only had 7 days to live. And Sukadeva Goswami knew that if he spoke about Radharani, even uttered her name once, he would go into a trance and there would be no more katha. Because that trance can last a long time because he's been away from Radharani. So any mention of Radha's name would take him completely away from the narration. So for this reason, he didn't speak the name of Radha directly, although he did mention the words Aradhana, Aradhita, and Gopi, indicating her name. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that the word Aradhita refers to Srimati Radharani. So although he didn't say Radha directly, indirectly, he's mentioned. And actually, it's described in the first verse, Radharani's name is there.
Yeah.
How is that? Satyam Param. Satyam is Krishna.
Param
is Radha. Param is Radha. Satyam Param Dhimahi. The last 3 words of the first verse of the Bhagavatam. Satyam refers to Lord Krishna. He's the absolute truth. And Param, the topmost person in the spiritual kingdom next to Krishna, is Radharani. So Param refers. And because Bhagavatam is all about bhakti, and Radharani is the source of bhakti. She's the residence, the emblem of bhakti. So actually the Bhagavatam flows, the Radharani flows right through the Bhagavatam. So, and the 6 Goswamis, we confirm that through their writings. So, amongst the great sages gathered was the esteemed Suta Goswami, who sometimes later re-narrated the entire treatise, Bhagavatam, to a group of sages assembled at the forest of Naimisharanya, headed by Shonak Rishi. All the sages of Naimisharanya came together to perform sacrifices for the well-being of mankind. After 1,000 years of sacrifices, they became frustrated and took shelter of Suta Goswami, who thus nurtured their devotion. There are several other conversations within the Bhagavatam. So when we go through the Bhagavatam, we'll see that one conversation leads into another conversation, So it gets a little bit confusing sometimes. So we have to pay a little bit of attention. Bhagavatam was spoken before. According to the Srimad Bhagavatam itself, it's been spoken several times. And there's a little idea here. The original Bhagavatam was spoken by Lord Vishnu to Lord Brahma in just 4 verses. And these are called the Chatusloki. And they are in the 2nd canto, 9th chapter, 33rd verse, up to 36. So that's the Chatusloki. We'll come across that when we go through the 2nd chapter. Yeah, that's it. Otherwise, there are different times when Bhagavatam has been spoken, and we've got an idea here when they've exactly been spoken. Oops. So when Suta Goswami spoke it to the Shonak Rishi and the sages at Naimisharanya, that's one. And that's a large part of the Bhagavatam we're going to speak is that conversation. Sukadeva Goswami speaking to Parikshit Maharaj, of course. Narad Muni speaking to Vyasadeva, because Narad Muni also conveyed the Bhagavatam again to Vyasadeva. Brahma to Narad Muni. That was one of the first occasions when Bhagavatam was spoken. Vishnu to Brahma, the Chatusloki. Lord Krishna spoke it also to Brahma, the time of creation. Maitreya Muni to Vidura. Again, that is within the Bhagavatam that we will go through. Bhagavatam was spoken. And Lord Krishna spoke it to Uddhav, and that's in the 3rd canto, 4th chapter. So all these occasions are when there have been, Bhagavatam has been spoken previously as well. So, oh my goodness, 5 to 5 already. Krishna, what happened? Krishna, okay. So I wanted to stop there, and Madhusudan Prabhu, you can share your realizations.
Hi, Hare Krishna. Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna.
I want to all the devotees and those who are present to listen to this amazing breakdown in the history of Srimad Bhagavatam at this stage. So you've done again, you know, you've covered the history of Bhagavatam, and we are fortunate. I'm glad that you're not one of these Kathavachak type of person. You know, they start off and then the Katha, I mean, and quite rightly, Prabhupada encouraged and didn't actually say that Bhagavatam should actually be done in the form of like this Kathavachaks. You know, they do it for 7 days and then they go through different stories and contemporary, and then sometimes it's just become like more like an entertainment for the crowd. But the format that we're following here, we're fortunate, and hopefully we will go through this by the mercy of Guru Maharaj for the start, and then mercy of Srila Prabhupada, and definitely Lord Chaitanya, because even in the introduction of Prabhupada writes to the Srimad Bhagavatam, he gives the fact that the way the Srimad Bhagavatam should be spoken by someone who has who knows the science of Krishna and who's qualified to then speak on Srimad Bhagavatam and Krishna, and also the people to listen to, and then the ones who should. So you've covered that very nicely, and I don't know where we all fit in, but this is a start, and we'll, Lord, and also in the introduction, Prabhupada does mention that, because Srimad Bhagavatam, has been authorized, and rather Lord Chaitanya, when he came, he emphasized that the importance of Srimad Bhagavatam, and that's the purest of the literatures, and that it's it has to be obviously given to the rest of the world. It's very important for humanity, and it should be given in the right form and in the right received in the right way, and it's got to be studied, and it's got to become a part of our everyday life. Not that it has been, we've studied this several times. We do a few classes, and that's how Guru Maharaj always emphasized as well, that we study Srimad Bhagavatam, not just listen to kathas and all that. And sometimes we end up thinking, I'll listen to these kathas, at least I'll give a gist of the overall overview of what's happening in Bhagavatam and all. So we listened to Parikshit Maharaj and how, he was cursed, and then Kali Yuga comes and starts and all that, and then it becomes like an entertainment, like a story-like thing, which is in that format, and sometimes you end up listening to some of these kathavachaks, which is nice. Sometimes there might be some benefit, and you end up thinking I'll gain something. But this is the format in which we are meant to be studying it, and we should have Bhagavatam in the house. It's like having Krishna in your house and in your home, and we are blessed. We are fortunate that here we are, with the mercy of Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya, especially when Lord Chaitanya has actually mentioned that those who are born in the land of Bharat should actually be, it becomes their duty to become very well versed in Srimad Bhagavatam and be familiar with the history of it, and then give it to the rest of the world. So that's my view on this at the moment. Nabi, and it's a good start and going through this history and how many times. Interesting enough, I don't know whether that's quite true or not. Just to mention, there's a village near Vrindavan called Sukhdev Gaon. And it's called Sukhdev Gaon because they say that Sukhdev Goswami spoke Srimad Bhagavatam there at one time. And the bit of the story, because we sing the prayers of Nrsimhadev for the well-being of Trikaligya, but Trikaligya's mother, when she stayed in that building, that house where Rajaram is staying at the moment, and in that building, Trikaligya's Mataji stayed there for a while, and she was looked after by one young devotee, and he came from the Sukhdev Gaon, and somehow he really looked after like as if she was her own mother. And for quite a long time, Trikaligya trusted him, put all his faith in him, and left the mom in charge, to be looked after by him. And then the Mataji felt that, there should be something in return. So she encouraged that devotee's name is Uday. And he comes from that village, and they're only farming communities, so very poor, around there. There's not like factories or anything like that. People can earn money. It's only farming land. And they only have a piece of land, which they just do farming. So some farmers, he went there and persuaded some of the farmers to give a piece of land, a bit of the land. And both farmers agreed. And by the side of the road, they gave a piece of land. And Trikaligya's Mataji encouraged that they build a small temple there. So Radharaman deities were installed there. And it's interesting, and they've looked after it, but this Trikaligya's family and mother and those who know about it, they try and look after it and maintain it. And Uday and his family worship Radharaman there. It's a very austere sort of place, when you go there. And when I go there, Trikaligya takes me there to that village, and when you go there, they're so simple. The family is so simple. All you get is a bit of rotlo, piece of rotlo, and kaddi, and their own village type of kaddi type, And that's all they'll feed you, very simply, And Uday does a bit of Bhagavatam Katha at that temple now and then and all that. And passers-by go and do darshan and all that. So it's interesting, that there's a Sukhdev Gaon, and Sukhdev Goswami did travel around, when he's spoken Bhagavatam, different places. But obviously the most important is when he speaks to Parikshit Maharaj in Naimi Saranya.
It's Shukratal. It's
Yeah, so,
yeah.
Yeah, that's important. Anyway, with this Bhagavatam, as we go through, we will realize that it's a conversation within a conversation within a conversation, and I'm sure we get lost at some point thinking, what is happening here now? But the way you're going through it now and break down the history and everything, I'm sure we're all going to benefit. We're all going to learn a lot. And in this month, as much as we can do. So I'm sure devotees will have a lot of questions and contribution to make, and hope we can carry on and do this. Wonderful, Nabi. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prabhu. Any questions by anybody, or any comments, any realizations you'd like to share?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Very nice, Prabhuji. First of all, I would like to thank Karuna. Can you hear me properly, Prabhuji?
Yes. Just about. It's a little echoey.
Okay. Yes, but Karuna Bhandarshi is doing a very nice job.
Amazing.
Very, really nice job. Amazing. And I hope she inspires a lot of us. And yes, and thanks to you and to the ND. Here I would like to say something, if you don't mind. So I think Kali was already there because Sutta Goswami, when he met the sages at Naimisharanya, he had already heard about the Srimad Bhagavatam being narrated by Sukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj. Then he went to the Naimisharanya forest where he met the sages. So the sages were trying to counteract the effect of Kali Yuga and also to please Lord Vishnu. That's where he met the 80,000 sages performing the yajna for 1,000 years. And there, Sutta Goswami was met with the sages, and the greatest among the sages was Shonaka Rishi. And Shonaka Rishi, he asked a question to Sutta Goswami. It's a bit tricky for beginners. So, like, we should like put it a bit clearer, like where it was already, the scene was set at Naimisharanya. Sutta Goswami came before coming. He had already heard the Bhagavatam from Sukadeva Goswami, and he is coming here.
That's right. He was actually seated in the recitation between the two. That's what he says to Shonaka Rishi. That's correct. And he's a Shuttadar, which means he can remember. As soon as he hears something once, Sutta Goswami can hear.
Sutta Goswami, he was the son of Romasham Rishi.
That's right.
Romasham Rishi, he was killed by Balaram, Balaram, because he was narrating a katha, and when Balaram reached there, he did not stand to pay his obeisances. So Balaram got angry and just with a blade of grass, he just killed him. And then there, all his knowledge was transformed to Sutta Goswami, and Sutta Goswami became very powerful through the knowledge of his father. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We're actually going to go through that, I think, tomorrow. Yeah. I was intending to go through it today, but I never got there. Actually,
so, I would like to ask one more question. Here is Metta Muni, who was narrating the Bhagavatam to Vidur. I cannot see properly where it is related in Bhagavatam. It says Bhagavatam 3.8.7 and then
3.9. So I think it might, yeah, that's a good point. It might be a whole series of verses there. I'll share it anyway when I post it.
Thank you so much.
Double check and
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Indulekha. Anybody else? Anything else? Okay, good. So we can recite the Nrsimha Kavach.